Welcome to the Storied Travel and Adventures podcast, where every trip tells a tale, and each week we explore a travel destination rich in history, culture, and inspired literature. I'm your host, Jen Jefferson, a lifelong reader, traveler, and researcher, and I am passionate about providing travelers with more than they expect. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. In celebration of Publication Day, today, August 25th, of author Alyssa Maxwell's Murder at Rosecliff, the 14th novel in her A Gilded Newport mystery series, I will be discussing literary Newport. Known for its Gilded Age cottages and sailing history, Newport continues to be a fashionable New England summer destination. My husband and I recently returned from a 4-day stay in Newport, and I can say with confidence that the city remains an attractive destination. We enjoyed a private guided island tour, incredible bed and breakfast, and delicious seafood, all of which and more I will address later in the episode. Now, before we dive into Newport's literary connections and trip planning inspiration, let's have a brief geography and history lesson because it's important to understand where the city has been in order to appreciate what it is today. Newport sits on the southern tip of what is commonly referred to as Aquidneck Island, but it is actually the Rhode Island. The original colony and then state name was Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, encompassing the island of Rhode Island, where Newport is located, and the mainland plantation or colony. Given the context of the word in regard to enslaved people, the state formally dropped the and Providence Plantations from its name in 2020 and is now just officially Rhode Island. A group of Puritan religious dissenters from Massachusetts came over to the island in 1638, settled in Portsmouth, and part of that group relocated to Newport in 1639, laying a foundation of a place of religious freedom and self-governance. Baptist Jews and Quakers were among the first religious groups seeking freedom in Newport. Rhode Island's oldest existing structure of worship, the Quakers' Great Friends Meeting House, built in 1699, and the oldest synagogue in America, Touro Synagogue, built in 1763, are both located in Newport, as is the oldest Catholic parish in the state, St. Mary's. The building is not the oldest building, but the parish is the oldest. Throughout the remainder of the 17th century and 18th century leading up to the American Revolution, Newport established itself as a prominent port in colonial Rhode Island. Sperm whale oil manufacturing was the leading trade that increased Newport's wealth and position in the colony. Unfortunately, the port also participated in the legal and later illegal slave trade. Leaning into its origins of self-governance, Rhode Island was the first of the 13 colonies to withdraw its allegiance from Britain in May 1776. And in the same vein of self-governance, it was the last to ratify the U.S. Constitution in May 1790, and then only under threat of heavy tariffs from the other newly formed U.S. states. The revolution itself took a toll on Newport's economic wealth through years of military occupation, first by the British from December 1776 to the summer of 1779, and then the French Allied headquarters from 1780 to 1783. Newport's economy and popularity began to rebound in the mid-1800s as it became a destination for America's wealthy to escape during the summer heat. First before the American Civil War by Southern plantation owners, then post-Civil War by the New York industrialists, the Vanderbilts, the Astors, and others. The influx of Irish immigrants provided the manual, port, and domestic labor to support Newport's rebirth. Also in the mid to late 1800s, the U.S. Navy began to establish a large presence in Newport, first with the U.S. Naval Academy. The Navy War College, the Center for Service Warfare Officer Training, the Navy Supply Corps School, and the headquarters of the Naval Undersea Warfare Center continue to operate in Newport. While we were visiting at the beginning of August, the Coast Guard actually had a ship in. The Coast Guard Cutter Eagle was in port for training exercises. This World War II vessel was the private yacht of Adolf Hitler, but was awarded to the U.S. after the war and turned into a Coast Guard ship. Being that this wealthy population had time and money for leisure activities, Newport became known for its sporting life. The first National Bicycling Club, the League of American Wheelmen, formed in Newport in 1890. The first U.S. tennis championships were played on the grass courts of the Newport Casino in 1891. And the first golfing U.S. Open was played at the Newport Country Club in 1895. Being a coastal city, sailing has always played an important role in Newport's history. From 1930 to 1983, Newport hosted the America's Cup Regatta on the waters of Narragansett Bay. In the late 1950s, early 1960s, President Eisenhower and President Kennedy established their summer White Houses in Newport. Eisenhower at Quarters A part of the Naval War College, and Kennedy at Hammersmith Farm, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis's childhood summer home and location of their famous wedding reception that had 3,000 guests. Newport remains a summer playground for the wealthy, along with the visitors who long for a glimpse into that world. So, what attracts visitors to Newport today? The most obvious answer is the Gilded Age cottages, mansions or palaces, if you will. The Newport Mansions Preservation Society oversees the care of 11 Gilded Age properties that are open to visitors year-round. Cornelius Vanderbilt III's The Breakers is the grand dame of the summer cottages, with his brother William's Marble House, Nevada Silver heiress Teresa Orlick's Rosecliff, and Colbert and Edward Berwyn's The Elms rounding out the top four. While similar in their opulence, each cottage and its gardens are unique, and some have interior spaces that have been converted into exhibition space. As an example, Rosecliff is currently hosting an exhibit on the American Revolution activities in Newport for the country's 250th anniversary. The Elms is developing a new immersive guest experience. Other small events like concerts and book signings are often on the calendar. Alyssa Maxwell will be at Rosecliff tomorrow signing copies of her new book, Murder at Rosecliff. The food and beverage scene in Newport, oh my goodness. Our 3-day stay couldn't even scratch the surface of the delectable meals available. Seafood, yes. Italian, yes. Steak, yes. Cocktails overlooking sunset, yes. The old Newport Casino, now the International Tennis Hall of Fame and Museum, is just down Bellevue Avenue from the cottages. And you can just pop in to explore the grounds without admission to the museum. Next door is the Newport Car Museum. I would highly recommend a sail on Narragansett Bay. And for those interested in Newport sailing history, there is the Sailing Museum and National Sailing Hall of Fame. There is a remarkable number of colonial era buildings still standing. The White Horse Tavern was built in 1673 and is recognized as the oldest tavern in America. The 1741 Colony House was the seat of Rhode Island's legislature, and saltbox-style residences with commemorative plaques dot the city. I was even able to see the house referenced in the first of Alyssa Maxwell's Gilded Newport series, Murder at the Breakers. There really is a blue salt box at the corner of 3rd and Poplar. It was built in 1758 and is on the National Register of Historic Places. So that leads me to Newport's literary connections. I love when authors lean into a destination like Newport that has such a unique identity and strong sense of place and brings it into their novel. Maxwell didn't have to utilize an actual building for that particular plot point, but because she did, it lends authenticity to the story and makes one absolutely giddy to discover it in person. Again, too many books, not enough time for me to have read all the published works that focus on Newport. Those that I have read and recommend for all the right vibes are Alyssa Maxwell's Gilded Newport Mystery Series, starts with Murder at the Breakers. The Lost Summers of Newport by Beatrice Williams, Lauren Willig, and Karen White. The Wedding People by Allison Esbeck. And 100 Summers by Beatrice Williams, which is Newport adjacent. It takes place in a fictional town near Newport in the 1930s, so has the same Newport Summer by the Sea vibes. When I was in Newport, I picked up a novel just called Newport, a novel by Jill Morrow. So I'm excited to read that. While I was doing research, I stumbled upon a list. It's on the website for the Newport Public Library, and it is a list of novels that feature Rhode Island locales. We love libraries and librarians. I will include a link in the show notes and transcript, but if you scroll down, towns are listed alphabetically. So within Newport, there's about 20 books. A few that caught my eye, Strange Wives by Shirley Barker, published in 1963, a historical fiction about the building of the Touro Synagogue and development of Newport's Jewish community. Ask No Quarter by George Marsh, published in 1945. Set between Newport and the Indies in the 1700s, a young man spends his days making a living as a privateer and fighting off pirates. Sounds interesting. Spies by Richard Sapir, published in 1984. An espionage packet of coded data found 40 years after World War II implicates a respectable Newport citizen in Nazi war crimes. The sunken German submarine off Rhode Island coast inspired this novel. The Maze at Windermere by George Blake Smith, published in 2018. A famous but aging tennis player and drunk party guest make a bet, resulting in a story that spans centuries. And Dragon Cove by Carter A. Vaughan, published in 1964. A fictional account where the British occupy Newport for several years during the American Revolution. So, and of course there are a slew of nonfiction books that discuss the Gilded Age, sailing, etc. It is interesting, though, that given Newport's strong sense of place, that more novels aren't centered in Newport. As I said, the library list had about 20 titles. Goodread has about 65. And a good amount of those are the series, like Alyssa Maxwell's, which has now 14 books in it, and nonfiction books. I really, really liked this Newport library list because it listed books that go beyond the Gilded Age and that theme, right? We've got the American Revolution, we've got the pirates, we've got tennis players, we've got the World War II, Nazi submarine that's off the coast of Newport. So I really like that list and highly recommend giving that a look if Newport is an interesting place for you to read about. Newport has absolutely fascinated me since my first visit at age 13 and continues to do so, whether it be through books or subsequent visits. Like I said, we just got back from a trip at the beginning of August. We spent 4-ish days, 3 nights. Our fourth day, we ended up exploring outside of Newport. We stayed at a absolutely lovely bed and breakfast called the Almondy Inn. Flawless. Rooms were immaculate and comfortable. The breakfasts served were world class. Absolutely world class. Stunning baked goods, delicious entrees. Innkeeper Brian and assistant innkeeper Lauren are fabulous people. So interesting. There is a daily happy hour, 5 to 6, wine and little charcuterie and cheese snacks. Not something my husband and I would normally partake in. Maybe grab a glass of wine and take some snacks up to our room while we're getting ready for dinner. Brian and Lauren created such an amazing atmosphere for guests that 5 to 6 hour was sacred to us when we were there. Like when we were making dinner reservations, no, we couldn't make it anything earlier than 6:15 because from 5 to 6 we had happy hour at the inn. Absolutely amazing. Again, rooms were comfortable, immaculately clean. I don't want to say I would recommend it to anyone because everybody's different, but not knowing everyone who's listening on a personal level or assisting them personally, I would say I would recommend it to everyone. We ate a ton of seafood, which was fabulous, especially living here in Central Texas. We don't get a lot of fresh seafood. So I ate a lot of lobster. We ate a lot of clam chowder. We ate scallops. We had dinner at the White Horse Tavern that I mentioned earlier in the podcast one evening, and I had the most delicious duck confit I have ever had. And I typically, if duck confit is on the menu, I will get it because it's not a popular dish here in the U.S., especially again down here in Texas. So I was stunned by the quality and flavor of this duck confit. The tavern itself is just so quintessential 1673, dark woods, the huge fireplace. Service was excellent. We also ate at an incredible Italian restaurant, Barcino. It was actually recommended to us by our tour guide, who is Newport born and raised. So we were very interested to see, okay, when you go out to eat, where do you eat? We didn't want to eat with the rest of the tourists the whole time. And so she recommended Barcino, and again, some of the best Italian food we've had outside of Italy. It was delicious. So, and again, we did pop into some of the, more popular on the social media places like the Black Pearl. We had lunch there one day, and it was great. I just had a shrimp cocktail and french fries. My husband had their mussels and ate some of my french fries, and it was delicious. We also ate at a place called Claw and Hammer, which innkeeper Brian recommended and was delicious. So those were kind of the highlights of our dining, and it doesn't even scratch the surface of what's available in Newport. Some of our favorite activities were the guided tour we took. We took a tour with Coastal Cruisers. They're kind of these little electric, supersized golfy cart type vehicles, all enclosed, which was great because we booked it for the morning we arrived and it was raining. So we were able to still enjoy our guided tour. And Krista, our tour guide, again, she's Newport born and raised, so she was a wealth of information, even though my husband and I had both been to Newport multiple times. We were still learning things about the history of Newport and even like where things were. Um, so that is something I highly recommend to especially first time visitors. It was well worth the time and money to do that tour. Of course, we went to some mansions. The Breakers is the only mansion we went into, but we did stop by several other mansions and took pictures from the outside and whatnot. The Breakers is just stunning. It's really, it's almost, I'm almost speechless. Like the opulence of the Breakers. If you've been there, you know. If you haven't, it's really worth going and seeing it and just taking it all in. It's very, very well preserved. And the Newport Mansions Preservation Society has an excellent app that has the self-guided tour narration on it. And I really loved it. One, it was super easy to use. Two, what it did is, so each time you went into a room, there's like a big placard that kind of gives you the just the brief synopsis of what the room is. So the narration tells you that, but then a little bit more detail. But then if you're in a space or it's talking about something that you are even more interested in, there are additional narration files that you can listen to. But if you're not overly interested in that room or that subject, you just move on to the next room. So it was really a great way to set that up for visitors. It took us about an hour to tour the house. And then we spent more time, we had lunch in their cafe and then taking pictures around along the grounds and whatnot before moving on to the other cottages. We also took 2 mornings to walk different parts of the cliff walk. So that is the walking trail that is on the cliff. It's on the eastern side of the island, so not Narragansett Bay, but more the Atlantic side of the island. And it runs behind all of those mansions all those Gilded Age mansions that are along Bellevue Avenue. About 2/3 of the walk is like a paved walkway, but there are portions where you are literally hiking the cliff. So you definitely want sturdy, well-treaded shoes doing that. It is not for flip-flops or your, cutesy in-town tourist shopping shoes. You want at least a good pair of sneakers with a good tread. We stopped by the Tennis Hall of Fame and took some pictures. We're not tennis people, so we did not go into the museum. We did not go into the adjacent car museum. But that building, which was originally the Newport Casino, and so it was basically built as a social club, and had different sporting events, horse shows, that kind of thing. So we went in and took pictures, and then we did a lot of walking around, taking pictures of older homes and buildings, a little bit of shopping. Of course, had to go to the local independent bookstore, Charter Books. Really enjoyed our time. I think that three days, it was really 2 full days, and then so we got in like mid-morning Monday, had our tour, so then had Monday afternoon, all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. That was pretty good timing. I don't know that you need more time unless you are really, really into doing more of touring individual mansions. And then what we didn't even scratch the surface of was all of the museums. So like the Sailing Museum, they have excellent art museums, that kind of thing. So A fourth day, depending on your interest, may or may not be needed. All that being said, if this podcast has, piqued your interest in planning a visit to Newport, please reach out to me via my website, storiedtravelandadventures.com. I'd love to assist in creating the perfect itinerary for you. That is my happy place, is talking to people, finding out exactly what they need and helping them make it happen. So again, thank you for joining me. I look forward to hosting you again next week when we will talk about literary coastal Maine. And I have a few surprises for you that I think you'll enjoy. Until then, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Pinterest, all at Storied Travel and Adventures. This week's social media will highlight Newport and its literary destinations. Take care. This podcast is edited by yours truly. Opening and closing music is the finale of Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Saëns, performed by my talented husband, Tom.